solution areas include, firstly, the ability to visualize projects citywide, both internally but also in a shared public view, supporting collaboration between the public and private stakeholders in this process. Users like Boston Planning and Development Agency have already established a pipeline to receive 3D models and represent those models as part of the permitting and development review process that can be shared across the agency. Second, ArcGIS Urban can also improve planning productivity and allow users to design 3D scenarios alongside that current development pipeline. And as more and more of our cities undergo updates to local zoning codes or design completely new neighborhoods like you're seeing here in the image of just outside of Uppsala, Sweden, Urban can provide a modern approach to converting legal text zoning codes into a visual representation that can be used to drive that detailed scenario planning down at the parcel level. And really the impacts of these plans can then be analyzed with automatically generated capacity indicators. So third is really being able to provide that ability to guide change and measure impact. We've added a new plan type in Urban called land use plans, as well as more advanced capacity metrics to ArcGIS Urban, which we can demo shortly. Therefore, in addition to just the specific plans that Urban has supported, we have added additional support for the general plan update process. And finally, and probably most importantly, the ability to deliver digital engagement. This is giving staff an easier way to collaborate internally with commenting and markup, but also with the community at scale, providing a digital public feedback capability. So on the one hand, it's important to communicate out important information to citizens, but these tools will also leverage the ability to enhance how feedback is collected about these individual projects and plans. We have a bunch of new features that were released this summer. In 2020, we're really focusing on building out new capabilities in land use planning, and later in the year, looking to release additional workflow support for project submission and review. This slide highlights 5 key workflow tracks that we're focused on in ArcGIS Urban. New, as I mentioned, is the land use plan type, which was released in support of the comprehensive plan update process that many of our communities undergo. This has been coupled with additional capabilities in support of both comprehensive plans and specific plans, namely with new capacity metrics, which report on things like trips, parking, energy use, water use. We've also added improved building form dimensional controls and a couple of new tools. We've added a building type allocation tool, a paint tool, and a grid creation tool. We also have a key workflow track in support of development review, and we're really focusing on this for the rest of 2020. We've added the ability to already go in and sketch a project using some simple tools and a model library. We've added line of sight analysis and recently released a partner API focused on the integration with some of our key partners in the permitting space. Urban is also integrated with City Engine for downstream urban design and visualization. Urban's rule library is now available for City Engine, along with additional site design rules. And finally, we're continuing to integrate with ArcGIS Hub for community engagement capabilities, specifically around the collection of that public feedback, which I will go in and now demonstrate. Now I'll take you through some of the new features of our recent release. The demo today is located in Honolulu. First, I'll take you through a new plan type, land use plans. We will then review some enhancements to zoning plans. And finally, I will cover the new sketching capabilities for projects in Urban. Here we are in Honolulu. Many of you might already be aware of their ambitious commuter rail corridor and the corresponding TOD plan areas. These plans are not realized overnight, so we're working with the city to stand up ArcGIS Urban to help facilitate the development of these individual plan areas. Let's get started with the demo. With the latest enhancement to Urban's data model, we now have the added content filter that can be used together with the user's login to determine what you see in the list on the left or directly in the map itself. You can further filter by just your own content, content shared across the organization, or public content. And with the recent release, we've added land use plans, useful for a general plan update. This is in addition to the zoning plans, which are shown in orange here, used for TODs or smaller corridor plans. In this first example, This is a land use plan, a future land use plan for the entire island of Honolulu, using our new conceptual grid. Land use is defined in urban as a percent distribution of space use types, shown here as hotel, retail, office. These land use types are represented as colors in the scenario shown here. We've also added an easy-to-use paint tool for applying new land use types within a scenario. In this case, we can add a general commercial around the light rail stops. And we can add some medium density residential further around that. These land uses are defined by FAR in the case of commercial or office space, and for residential, dwelling units per acre is used to denote density. Medium density residential being 15 units per acre, and single family residential being 5 units per acre. Let's zoom in and take a close look at an individual TOD plan. In this case, the East Kapolei plan, around these 3 light rail stations. In urban, we can choose to edit the plan. This will bring up additional functionality for authoring scenarios. Urban uses a copy from the existing conditions as a starting point for any plan. In Honolulu, we have a very simple definition of existing land uses. That's why you only see urban and agricultural listed here. This is also a very large unbuilt greenfield site. In urban, what we can do is actually look at these selected parcels and also validate against other uses that might be within zoning districts that exist within that plan area. But in this example, what I'm going to do is create a brand new scenario, and I'm going to walk through how to create a conceptual scenario and split up some of these very large parcels. New scenarios can be based off existing ones, and the ownership corresponds to your username. So unless you share the plan with a colleague or have a scenario unlocked, they won't be able to edit your work. So now what I'm going to do is select these 3 parcels and show you how to create a conceptual grid. Here in the toolbar, there's a few options to merge, split, erase, and make a new grid. It's a new option that will automatically slice up the large parcels so I can generate some conceptual scenarios. The new grid will be stored as conceptual parcels in the scenario that you have active. Under the Land Use tab, we've added that new paint tool. Painting land use is quite well known as a concept in the industry today. This lets you choose from a palette of land use types. In this case, you can see future land use types, which can be further templatized for your particular city or county, reflective of typical development patterns. So here in these examples, you're seeing a couple of commercial cores combined together with a mixed use in between. So when painting, you're actually creating a district underneath. Here in these scenarios, you can already see some alternatives that I went ahead and created. We've added a few new land use types to our US default template, which you can see here, further defined as hotel, office, parking, and each one of these space use types has coefficients already built in that you can leverage. So each of these scenarios in this particular plan are targeting commercial cores around these 3 transit stations. Each plan can also have context brought in for additional levels of detail, in this case showing distance from station areas. So now let me go back to the overview and I'll take you to a different plan area. In the next example, we'll look at the Aiea Pearl City specific plan. A zoning plan is similar to a land use plan. We can go ahead and open up that plan and choose to edit it. In this plan area, we can take a look at the zoning capabilities of urban and how it may support a more targeted approach to implementing zoning changes and realizing an entire transit village. Similar to the other plan area, there is a transit station and the corresponding special district noted in the quarter and half-mile buffers around that station. And as a common exercise, planners like to take a look at how existing zoning can be changed to accommodate a future build-out scenario. So urban allows us to run scenarios based off the existing zoning. If all development were to occur, what proposed zone changes might actually look like. If I go ahead and switch scenarios here, you can see the existing zoning. And while existing conditions is locked, we can use that as a basis to build from in another scenario. So in this case, I'm going to select a zone here, BMX4. We can go ahead and open that up and modify it by clicking the Modify button. This actually opens up an entire list of available zones, both existing and proposed zones. Each zone in the plan area will have more detailed parameters outlining the FAR, allowed space use types, maximum building height. We're continuing to add new parameters, and our early customers are heavily influencing these. We've just recently added sky planes, which I'll demonstrate shortly. From this existing zone, we can also make a copy and propose changes. In this case, we'll make the new zone and we'll name it after the plan area itself. And we'll add a label. And for this example, what we'll do is just boost FAR from 4 to 5 FAR. We can save the work and then access that new zone directly in that list of all available zones and apply it within our scene. This new zone will affect all the parcels that it touches, and they'll update according to that new parameter. In addition to modeling new zone types and land use types, Urban can model out building types. The building types respond to the underlying parameters automatically. In this case, you can see the new regulation of 5 being applied to this particular building. Building types are defined as a mix of space use types, one or many. Therefore, we can validate across zoning and land use plans based on the space use. And these space uses are defined and drive downstream capacity metrics, which are related to population, parking, trips, emission, energy use. And you can download these to Excel. I'll go ahead and download the entire study area here so we can open it up and take a look. In the Excel doc, it will actually download directly into your browser, and you can open that up and, in this case, enable editing. Each scenario is noted by the columns here. Each column represents the full build out of that particular scenario, and all the capacity metrics are listed according to them. We also have a breakdown of all the space use types, as well as the space per zone applied in each scenario as well. Many scenarios are not only form-based, but can be run by testing different space use variations. In Urban, you can create and manage your own space use types. So in this case, let's create a new space use type in this plan, and we'll call it, let's say, a brewery. And give it a pretty high ceiling, I would say. On the back end of this space use type, we can assign coefficients related to parking, number of jobs, and further use or not use all of these coefficients. Now what we can do is use that space use type within a building type by first selecting a site. In this case, already it's a Main Street retail building. So we're adding a bit more detail by adding a brewery. Let's go ahead and create a brand new building type. We got to name our building type, so we'll call it a simple brewery. And we can add space use components to our building, in this case selecting our new space use type. We can choose the footprint shape, and this allows us to actually assign whether or not it's an auto-generated footprint or rectangular footprint for further alignment characteristics. And when you're all finished, this new building type will be available across the plan area to others that might be working as well, and it can be applied to the parcel, just like so. So, as mentioned, one of the key enhancements to zoning plans has been the addition of sky planes. In this example, let's override the allowable height of this parcel here, moving it from 60-foot maximum height to around 400 foot. We can turn on the zoning envelopes and visualize that buildable volume, which the sky plane will carve away at. Sky planes can be applied based on a parcel edge. Here we can choose the front street edge and set a vertical offset of 50 with a departure angle of 75 degrees. And to illustrate this further, rather than just show the building envelope, let's add a residential tower. The building type will react by offsetting itself to build as high as possible. And if we adjust the sky plane, the building will readjust as well to account for that. the residential tower is aligned to be as close to the street edge as possible. So no matter how I change the angle of departure, that building will always try and creep forward. In addition to the scenario planning tools, Urban has some out-of-the-box spatial analysis tools, which include shadow, measurement, and slice. And we've just added a brand new one, line of sight. So similar to many beach towns, neighbors on hills don't like their views of the water blocked. So line of sight can be useful to simulate an observer location and then enable you to draw sight lines that can be added at various places throughout the scenario. So in this case, you can see the new high-rise towers are not really blocking the view. The existing high-rise towers had originally already blocked it. We've also added street-level imagery through an integration with Mapillary, allowing you to see side-by-side comparison with existing conditions on the right and the proposed conditions or the urban model on the left. When ready, these scenarios can be published from your plan and shared internally or with the public. When you're ready to publish, you hit the Publish button. That brings up a dialog from where you choose which layers you would like to publish and the scenarios that you'd like to appear. By navigating back to the overview, here you can see the full build-out scenario that I had just published for sharing. We've added the ability to share plans not only internally, but also with the public per scenario. So we've added under configuration a sharing tab that lets the owner of the plan copy that plan to the public view. In addition, we've added the ability to set a public comment period directly on the plan or project. This would be enabled for a designated time period. And once activated, users or viewers who are just viewing the plan can make categorized comments per scenario. And these comment categories can be set up ahead of time. This feedback layer is using the hub annotation layer for seamless management on the backend through ArcGIS Hub. And these comments are threaded together so that you can also download them later on for analysis. Now moving on to enhancements to projects in Urban. Again, projects in Urban are related to building permits, and like many cities, Honolulu is starting to visualize projects in context using 3D submissions. In this case, a Revit model for this apartment building, and comments can be turned on for projects as well. We've recently added a very simple project editing capability. For this example, I will go ahead and create a brand new project, and let's choose a spot over here in this field. I'll go ahead and designate the area of the project, and I'm going to just call it sketch for this example. So you can imagine before just having a cocktail napkin to make some sketches, now we actually have the ability to sketch directly in context. Here we see the initial editing capability. We can sketch new buildings. In this case, let's sketch a 50-foot tall building. And you're sketching it freehand with the ability to position or push-pull each individual face of that building. We can sketch a brand new tower as well. So in this case, the tower itself can be moved independently of the podium that you had just sketched, and each individual face can be pulled and positioned both in the X, Y, but also Z direction. We also have an extensive model library of trees. Each individual asset can be sized and positioned independent of each other. And in this case, we also have a full model library of different assets like vehicles. Let's go ahead and place a dump truck for scale. And we also have street furniture. Street furniture can be things such as the garbage bins, but also more complex models like the bus stop. And just like the tree models, the bus stop can be positioned and scaled according to that particular project. Projects are also utilizing scenarios in the same method that plans are, and allow you to share them the same way as well. So any edits made to a project will actually be shown in the overview. So if I go back in and edit this particular project building, make the podium a bit wider, my edits are saved automatically, and if I go back to the overview, those edits are reflected. That's where I'll leave it today. We're excited to continue working with the City and County of Honolulu to realize each of their TOD plans. If you have any questions regarding the demo or some of the capabilities shown, we'll be taking questions at the end of the session. Back over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Brooks, for demonstrating the newest features in ArcGIS Urban. My name is Eric Whitner. I'm the product manager for ArcGIS Urban, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the roadmap and how we're extending ArcGIS Urban. Between this release and the next release, we're going to make available an API for ArcGIS Urban, which will allow third-party applications to publish indicators, download scenarios from plans and projects, or upload context layers to scenarios as well. This creates an opportunity for partners to extend the capabilities of ArcGIS Urban with custom analytical tools. Looking beyond that to our release later this year, there's a variety of capabilities that we're working on. Project submission will allow people outside of an organization that has Urban to create a project, upload a representation of it, be it a 2D site plan or a 3D model, and submit it for inclusion in Urban. We'll be expanding the internal feedback capabilities of Urban with a markup on plans and projects. We'll allow the custom editing of procedurally generated massing models from zoning regulation, so you can make minor modifications to what Urban generates en masse. We'll be looking at integrating the work that the ArcGIS Urban Labs team has done on suitability analysis and place type allocation into the core product of ArcGIS Urban. We'll expand our base map to support integrated mesh, where integrated meshes will be masked out where they overlap proposed plans and projects. And then probably most exciting is we'll start moving towards an on-premise implementation of ArcGIS Urban on ArcGIS Enterprise. There's so much more we want to share, but we want to promote transparency with you, our users. So we've decided to share a portion of our roadmap online through this Trello board. If you go here, you'll be able to see what we're planning on working on in future releases, what we're currently working on for the next release, and what we've released in previous years. So you can keep track of our efforts and where your priorities align with what we're working on. ArcGIS Urban is a system of record for your zoning and land use regulation, as well as a way to track all your project activity across the city. It's exposed through a simple and easy-to-use 3D web-based application. But it's also part of the ArcGIS platform, which means you can take a plan and wrap it in a survey using Survey 123 to get feedback from the public on what they think of that plan. Or you can take a project and wrap it in a story map and walk a citizen member through why this project is compelling. ArcGIS Hub provides a platform for engaging with your citizens in a structured way, and you can use ArcGIS Urban and its projects and plans directly in ArcGIS Hub. City Engine provides a tool to do advanced design on top of plans and projects inside ArcGIS Urban, and supports the same scenario-based data model that ArcGIS Urban does. ArcGIS Pro has advanced analytical capabilities, and with its ability to access plans and projects, you can use it to do additional analysis and publish the results back to ArcGIS Urban. In addition, ArcGIS Enterprise can be used to publish context information back to ArcGIS Urban. Let's take a look at how ArcGIS City Engine integrates with ArcGIS Urban. ArcGIS City Engine is a desktop tool for urban design and planning that is focused on conceptual planning and master planning for architecture, engineering, and construction, site design for city planning, and the integration of all of these with game engines for high-end visualization and creation of immersive experiences in virtual reality and augmented reality. City Engine can import plans and projects from ArcGIS Urban. You can then edit and modify these plans and projects and synchronize the changes back to ArcGIS Urban. You can also apply more advanced procedural rules to create more compelling representations of those plans and projects in City Engine and publish those as scenes that become scenarios inside ArcGIS Urban. You can also take a planner project from Urban, bring it into City Engine, and then export it to a game engine for use in virtual reality or rendering. Let's take a look at this integration with a live demo. Here we have City Engine 2020.0. I log in, and I'm logging in with my ArcGIS Online username that has access to ArcGIS Urban. In the preferences, I can pick which instance of Urban I'm connecting to if I have access to multiple instances. So in this case, I'm going to pick Pasadena. New in the navigator is this Urban tab. I click on it, and it lists out all the plans and projects I can import from that instance of Urban. I download a plan for South Fair Oaks, and I see the parcels, the zones, the overlays for that area. Included in City Engine is the procedural rule that ArcGIS Urban uses. You can actually download the latest version when you're managing your Esri library of procedural rules, and then apply that to the parcels to create the exact same representation you would get in ArcGIS Urban. So here I'm going to go to my scenario. This is a 10-year build-out scenario. I'll apply the ArcGIS Urban rule for future development, and instantly I see the 3D buildings for the redeveloped parcels appear. City Engine is also integrated into the platform, so I'm going to go out and find the 3D buildings for South Fair Oaks and import those as multi-patch features from a multi-patch feature class, and that gives me my context buildings around these buildings. I'll apply a simple rule just to turn them into gray blocks. So now, why would I want to do this? Why would I want to bring this plan into City Engine? Perhaps I want to add additional detail to this building here I've selected beyond what's capable in the Urban rule. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in on this feature. I'll go ahead and delete the model that the Urban rule is generating, and then start creating my own form. So I want to make a custom building. I'm going to split the roof in half, lower one side, maybe make a corner that has an additional step back. In any case, I can custom modify that form and then apply to it a rule that adds additional architectural detail. In this case, skins it in a facade with windows and balconies. So rather than do that over time for all these buildings, I've actually got a previous project where I've applied a series of rules to create more detailed buildings for all these buildings that were generated by City Engine. I've also dropped in a street network to create a really, really compelling representation of the transportation for this proposed project. So here we can see my detailed 3D buildings. So this is a much more detailed representation than I built from the simple procedural rules. Now what do I want to do with it? Well, I'm going to publish this back as a scenario in ArcGIS Urban. So now I go in ArcGIS Urban. Here's all my different scenarios. I select scenario 21, which is the one I just published. And here's my detailed buildings coming in as a service. The other thing I can do is I could export this to a game engine, so something like Unreal Engine, and then use Unreal to create a more visually compelling representation. So here we've dropped it into Unreal, done some substitution of textures and 3D models to give it more realism, added in representations of people moving on it, and then we can create and author a high-end video visualizing what this development might look like, including things like atmospheric effects, lighting effects, lens flare, all kinds of high-end visualization capabilities that are possible in Unreal. So City Engine 2020.0 was just released. There's a variety of new capabilities added, a lot of changes to the editing tools to improve site plan authoring. And this was really with an eye towards improving the editing experience for ArcGIS urban plans and projects. We improved the rendering directly inside CityEngine to support physical-based materials, so shininess, surface roughness. So even if you don't know how to use Unreal, you can still bring your plans and projects into CityEngine and create higher-end visuals that you can export as screenshots. We added in mobile scene layer packaging so that you can take a whole plan project, package it as a single file, and then share that for use in another application like ArcGIS Earth. And then CityEngine continues to expand the capabilities of computer-generated architecture to do more sophisticated zoning representation in support of ArcGIS Urban. Beyond CityEngine, this year we're expanding our integration of ArcGIS Urban to include Pro with the ArcGIS Urban connector for Pro. ArcGIS Urban stores multiple scenarios per plans, and we've demonstrated how CityEngine can be used as an advanced editing tool, as a tool to provide additional realism through rules, and as a publishing tool to game engines. But ArcGIS Pro is our in-house spatial analysis tool with a huge number of capabilities to do additional analysis. Also, a set of capabilities exposed through ArcGIS solutions, especially local government solutions, that do analysis that is directly relevant to urban. And then a lot of third-party solutions from consultants in architecture, engineering, and construction that are related to urban planning and design. So the Urban Connector, which is based on the API for ArcGIS Urban, allows us to exchange information between Urban and Pro so that you can use it as an analytical platform. At its core, it allows you to share GIS information as indicators. So that could be a suitability raster that you've used to do analysis on, the results of an evaluation model. It could be other information such as census information that you want to have as indicators to support decision making. You can now publish that through the Urban Connector from ArcGIS Pro to ArcGIS Urban. You can share 3D base layers, so 3D buildings or trees that are derived from LiDAR in ArcGIS Pro, or bridges that you've extracted out, or subsurface features like pipes. You can publish those as 3D base layers from Pro to ArcGIS Urban. But Pro can also reach into Urban and get, for a specific plan area, a scenario, and pull out the parcels, the zones, and the overlays, and the future buildings, and bring those into ArcGIS Pro so that you can do analysis on them in Pro using custom-built models or solutions that you've downloaded, for instance, from the local government solution set. Once you've done your analysis, of course, you want to share it back, so you can share those as context layers directly into the scenarios that you downloaded from. So rather than talk about it, let's take a look at a demonstration of the ArcGIS Urban Connector for Pro. So here I have a set of data population that I've authored cartographically, and I want to share this for decision making in ArcGIS Urban. I select the indicator name, the description, which instance of Urban I'm going to publish to, and some cartographic features like transparency, hit publish, and it goes ahead and finds the correct place to store that indicator, creates a new item in that instance of Urban, references the two layers together, and makes that available in your Urban instance. So here I go into Boston, I look at my indicators, I scroll down, I can see the new one I just published, USA population density, click on it, and see the results and display that indicator. And this could be used for base map information or a variety of information. Now, let's go the other way. So I'm inside ArcGIS Pro, and I want to pull from the Boston ArcGIS Urban instance a portion of the South dot plan, the second scenario out of it, and these specific layers, plan areas, future buildings, parcels, zones, overlays, right? They go into a geodatabase. I can bring those feature classes into my ArcGIS Pro scene, and now I can do analysis on them. So I can, for instance, I could go out to the local government data model, local government solution, grab the visibility analysis solution, run it on the 3D buildings, figure out how visible these buildings are from the water area, and then use the connector to publish that context layer back to ArcGIS Urban, right? Inside one of the scenarios. So if I close the tool, flip back to Urban here. If I look inside that plan that I was editing, look inside the specific scenario I was working on, right? These visibility assessment layers that I've created are now context layers in that specific scenario, so I can see them directly in ArcGIS Urban. So this is a capability that will be coming with the release of the API, and the connector will be a developer sample that we make available. And with that, I'll turn it back to Brooks to talk about how to get started with ArcGIS Urban.
Thanks, Eric. Now I'd like to shift and talk a little bit more about how to get started and about some of the key data layers behind the deployment of ArcGIS Urban. The Urban model, when created in ArcGIS Online, is composed of base layers. The 3D base map, which is a set of 3D buildings, trees, terrain height map, or what we call a DTM, and preferred topo and satellite base map. This can be created from LiDAR or through a simple data acquisition through content partners like Nearmap. In addition to the base map, you will need to upload your land use and/or zoning information. This can be detailed out further leveraging Urban's tabular format and configuration through the data manager. And this drives key parameters in your plan. Next will be parcels. Parcels in Urban are used as the basis for representing development constraints. And finally, projects. This is a layer that represents your building permit pipeline and can be overlaid on the 3D city model. In addition to base layers, Urban comes with a series of defaults that can be localized. The two primary types of defaults are space use types and building types, which are made up of space use types. Space use types hold the coefficients, and they help validate between land use and zoning plans. And building types can actually be configured to represent typical development patterns in your community. Many of you might already have a 3D base map, or at least the ingredients to make one. One option is to use LiDAR and building footprint polygons in the free Pro solution called 3D Base Map to extract roof forms of any size geography. You can also use LiDAR of high enough quality to extract the building footprint features themselves. Another option is to leverage content from our partner Nearmap. Nearmap provides high-resolution 3D mesh for Urban, with coverage in major metropolitan areas of the US, Canada, and Australia. The mesh can be hosted as the satellite base map in Urban and represents true reality for development review purposes. Really amazing content. So let's get started. If you want to discuss ArcGIS Urban more and better understand the data requirements, or would like to show a demo to additional colleagues, feel free to schedule a demo with our team using this URL. Feel free to screenshot it as well. Generally, there are 3 steps to get started. First, being software licensing. This application is an extension to ArcGIS Online, which many of you will already have access to. Second, Esri provides an Urban launch kit, which is a great way to get deployed with your own data in your own environment. Our professional services team here at Esri has experience deploying cities around the world. And finally, third, we are working with a few select specialty partners that not only provide Urban launch kit services, but also bring planning and development services to the table as well. Our specialty partners are able to speak more individually to their broad range of services, but generally covering anything from application development and deployment to planning-related domain expertise in comprehensive plan updates, zoning updates or zoning code rewrites, downtown planning, corridor planning, etc. And finally, to conclude today's session and now open it up for question and answers, I wanted to post some key training and resources for you all to leverage as well. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today for our session on ArcGIS Urban.
Now?
Hi, everyone. This is Christine from the Smart City Solutions team. Warm welcome to anyone who joined us virtually today. Thank you so much for being here. Before getting into questions, I wanted to shout out to Jill, who is the first to finish the 3 quiz questions. Congratulations, Jill. You are certified planners now. All right, Brooks and Eric, we've had some great questions come in during the presentation. And everyone, please do continue to submit yours as we go through the Q&A here. We will try to go through as many as we can in the next 15 minutes or so. So let's get started. So the first one is a question we've been getting a lot. Are there plans to make urban available on Enterprise?
Yeah, this is Eric Whitner. I'm the product manager for ArcGIS Urban. Yes, there are plans to make ArcGIS Urban available on Enterprise. It'll happen in 2 phases. First, we'll allow the hosting of ArcGIS Urban models in Enterprise, and then you can use those services on the ArcGIS Online hosted application of ArcGIS Urban. And then we'll move to a fully on-premises version of ArcGIS Urban that's delivered with Enterprise. We're planning to deliver that sometime next year, probably with the first phase around UC next year, and the second phase of fully on-prem towards the end of the year. But those are our course timelines at the moment.
Great. So next question is from Ricardo. When do you expect to incorporate precision aids for element editing? So I'm assuming snapping or some editing tools.
Yeah, so we recognize that when you're working in projects and plans and making modifications to buildings, that you want to have precise control over the dimensions of buildings. You want to be able to infer 90-degree angles or 45-degree angles, or infer off of adjacent features and snap to features. Those are capabilities we have to build into the 3D editing components of the JavaScript API, and then we will consume them in ArcGIS Urban. You'll again see those come out over time, probably starting with snapping to the feature you're sketching, dimensions in the feature you're sketching, and moving on to include snapping and dimensioning and inference from adjacent features. Initially, the first parts of that will come out with the release in the spring of 2021, and then moving towards being able to support more capabilities with adjacent features in the next release.
Awesome. So the next question is from Laura. Is the ArcGIS Urban Connector Toolbox available now?
Not yet. So the ArcGIS Urban API is targeted to be released in September. It's being released asynchronously from the major releases. When that API becomes available, then we'll release the ArcGIS Urban Connector as part of the solutions offering built on top of that API.
Great. Hopefully that also answers some questions about when will the API be available. So here is a question from Rosanna that I think, Brooks, you might be able to address. Can you explain if there are plans to maintain GeoPlanner as an alternative way for visualize scenarios and apply collaborative planning and geodesign?
Yeah, sure. So greetings, everyone. And yeah, thanks for the question. It's important to note that GeoPlanner is definitely still being developed on, and it will actually continue to play a role in green infrastructure planning as well as regional planning. It's really a generic set of tools that can apply at many different scales, while urban is more of a tool purpose-built for the urban environment, in particular for land use and zoning related planning workflows. So the answer is yes, it will be furthered. And there's also an integration already, because both are extensions to ArcGIS Online. So GeoPlanner works off of a feature service with subtypes noted so that you can then paint with them in GeoPlanner. Similarly, in Urban, we actually have a feature service based model. So if you wanted to, you could explore how those feature services could work together. But generally, they do work off of the same underlying technology. So they are there is potential there to work across the tools. But again, one, be a geoplanner, is a bit more generic than the focused set of tools we built in urban for the urban environment, and particularly to work on geometries like parcels and zoning districts and land use districts.
Great. The next question is, can this program be adapted to form-based or hybrid codes?
Yeah, I can take that one too. We've definitely thought about form-based codes. Currently, urban has been built initially to really handle some of the common zoning code parameters that we've seen, related to Euclidean zoning. It's FAR, maximum height, the setback parameters that are from different edge types like front, side, and rear. That was the first step for urban. Urban is now being built to handle a lot more zoning parameters. If you have ideas for some zoning parameters, both on the form-based side as well as the Euclidean side, that you think urban should handle, we'd love to hear what those would be specifically. And you could leave them in our chat over on the showcase, and we can just have a long list start to be built. Our list for form-based parameters is looking at, for example, height averaging, being able to know that the maximum height might not always be the maximum height for all parts of a building, and being able to promote this idea of a negotiated maximum height based on certain towers or lower parts of the structure. So height averaging, we've also taken a look at facade breaks, but these are in the future. They're on our roadmap. But again, we'd like to talk more about the types of form-based code parameters that you're looking to or would imagine using in ArcGIS Urban, because we're driven in our development roadmap by our users. And so if our users say we need to handle a certain parameter, we prioritize it. So we'd like to start that discussion.
Great. Our next question is from Sharon. Can Urban create a 5, 10, 15, 20-year out prediction for zoning change needs based on constantly changing needs?
Yeah, so ArcGIS Urban is a plan design tool, not a predictive growth modeling tool. So we don't have built-in capabilities for modeling potential long-term land use or zoning. With the connection to ArcGIS Pro, though, you could use the spatial analysis tools in ArcGIS Pro to do that kind of analysis, then use that to create a set of indicators and drive the allocation of different land uses or zones in future plans in ArcGIS Urban. However, I'm interested in hearing what you'd like to see in terms of capabilities in this type of predictive modeling. It's something that we're definitely interested in doing inside ArcGIS Urban in the long term, but we really want to get an understanding of what you want us to model and what are the parameters that you're interested in us using to help determine what these alternative futures would look like.
Yeah, Sharon, if you can come by the Urban showcase, we can discuss more about the project you are looking to use Urban for. All right, next question is related to the Urban Lab integration. Is the ArcGIS Urban Lab extension available now?
Yeah, I could take that one. So the ArcGIS Urban Lab team is actually part of our professional services division at Esri. And so what we've done is, if for those who are not familiar with it, there's an application that we've developed called the Policy Validation app. This has been purpose-built to really extend Urban's capabilities in a couple of key areas, one being suitability, one being place type allocation, and one being the aggregation of geographies, of parameters on geographies. So when we talk about, and maybe to follow on the previous question, when we talk about long-term land use and zoning predictions, we have seen the use of a tool like that to do suitability modeling in a way that allows you to actually assess growth capacity of a city over time. So it is definitely a tool that's been built to look at that. The Urban Lab extension is project by project available. So we're looking basically for partnerships on the use of that tool. It's not widely available or openly available. It is, however, going to be heavily influencing the further development of Urban itself. So a lot of these different capabilities are going to be integrated into Urban. in the next couple of releases. We're already in discussions currently on how to make that happen. So likely you'll see a lot of what is already part of the Urban Lab app called the Policy Validation app make it into Urban probably next year. So you can look forward to that as well. So if you're interested in learning more, we actually have our professional services team as well over on our showcase that can answer some questions about that app.
Definitely. So here is an interesting question from Andrew. Can ArcGIS Urban account for parcels that are split zoned?
Yeah, so at the moment, no. So a parcel is actually querying underneath it at its geometric center to figure out which zone it falls within. So if you want to have a parcel have different types of uses, you'd actually have to split that and geometrically split the parcel into pieces. And this is one of the reasons why we sort of duplicate all the parcels into a plan. When we create a plan, is you can make modifications to those parcels without it being permanently applied to your original source master. However, in the future, this is something we're interested in doing. We've talked about carrying the boundary lines of zoning up through the parcels and automatically doing splits. But I'd be interested in seeing what kind of user experience you'd like to build around that to determine which parcels you do or do not split along those boundaries and whether it just applies en masse. So definitely come and have a chat at the ArcGIS Urban booth or reach out and schedule a meeting because I'd like to discuss this capability.
Mm-hmm. Our next question is from Emily. Is the split screen imagery available for Canadian coverage? I'm assuming she's talking about the Street View feature here.
Yeah, so our Street View feature is built on top of Mapillary. So wherever Mapillary has coverage, we will have coverage. By and large, the public data that they make available is open source collected data, or in some cases, data that cities have paid to collect and then made the decision to make publicly available on the broader Mapillary platform. So there are Canadian cities that do have Mapillary data, but the coverage will vary depending on where you are. We're also looking at working with other spherical imagery providers to expand to include their platforms and their collections of spherical imagery, so you can get broader access to comparative photography.
Great. This is a question from Miranda. Is ArcGIS Urban included in the licensing for City Engine?
No, it's not. ArcGIS Urban doesn't come with City Engine, but interestingly enough, there is a thing called the ArcGIS Urban Suite, which is City Engine coming with ArcGIS Urban. So we view City Engine as an advanced design and editing tool for plans and projects. So when you buy the ArcGIS Urban Suite, you get City Engine as well, and that's for a limited time for the first 2 years when we released Urban. But if you have an existing City Engine, you'd have to purchase an instance of Urban separately.
All right. Brooks, I'm hoping you can help answer the next question. Are there significant difference in Urban when developing scenarios using land use versus zoning codes?
Yeah, sure. So when we just added the recent capability to handle land use plans, it was really because land use plans are a different plan type altogether. So in Urban, when you start a new plan and designate that plan extent, you're actually designating, first of all, whether it is a zoning plan or a land use plan. So whether you're looking at broad changes, as part of a comprehensive plan effort, or if you're looking at more of a neighborhood scale zoning change. So with land use, it's much simpler than zoning in the data model. We've actually added the capability to have both existing as well as future land use as an existing future land use. So when you're loading in your land use code, what we're able to do is actually load in both the existing land use as well as future land use, and then use that, both of them really, to drive scenarios downstream. And scenarios with land use are usually looking at FAR when it comes to commercial use or retail use in general, office space, for example. And then dwelling units per acre is really used for broad calculations in residential uses or building types that have residential uses. So land use is really meant to be a simple pass, essentially, at understanding capacity. We're able to, in land use plans, also look at land potential as well as the buildable potential after incorporating different building types on the parcel. So it allows you to do a bit more to then support downstream work in the zoning plan. So zoning plans can actually reference back to land use plans. You have to actually select whether you want to look at the future land use to actually see what space use types are allowed, for example, in your zoning plan. But we do actually even support a link back to those plans. So there are two different types of plans, a bit different. One is a bit more complex than the other. But yeah, I would encourage you to go try it out, actually.
Mhm. Great. So we have 2 minutes left here before the session closes. So we're going to take one last question. So Sharon asks, does City Engine incorporate BIM?
Yeah, so a BIM model, if it can be converted to a 3D model, can be imported in City Engine, and you can apply rules to it in City Engine to create either texture features or do additional procedural generation off of it. That's, I would say, not a typical workflow. BIM data tends to be very heavy, very complex. So City Engine is probably not the best place to open that. ArcGIS Pro supports the consumption of Revit models directly. You can import industry foundation class, IFC, BIM data into ArcGIS Pro through the data interoperability extension. And then from Pro, publish those to ArcGIS Online as a way to share that information either as a building scene layer or as a 3D object scene layer, and share those across the platform. So I think that's probably a better way to support BIM. I will say just also that ArcGIS Urban at the next release, we're going to be supporting the Building Explorer tools for building scene layers directly inside ArcGIS Urban. So right now you can take a building scene layer, put it in a scene, and then host that as a project inside ArcGIS Urban and see that BIM model inside ArcGIS Urban. But then you'll also be able to open the Building Explorer and control the floors and look at the complexity of the full complexity of the building with that tool.
All right, so this concludes our time together today. There are so many great questions that unfortunately we don't have the time to answer here. But as mentioned, our team is waiting for you at Expo. So please head over to the ArcGIS Urban Showcase at Expo if you're interested in learning more or would like to discuss how to get started using Urban for your own projects. With that, thank you, Eric and Brooks, for the amazing presentation. And thank you all again for coming. Take care.
Yeah.